Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Today, many of us are also standing in our own battlefields. Not with weapons, but with stress, confusion, fear, relationships, and purpose in life. The Gita is not a book of religion alone. It is a manual for life. It teaches us how to make decisions when we are confused, how to stay calm in difficult situations, how to perform our duties without fear, and most importantly, how to understand who we truly are. Let's start from what is science of the soul.
Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're taking a truly fascinating deep dive into the hidden layers of psychology tucked inside a single ancient text, specifically Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1, verse 2. We're going to literally peel back the onion on this one to reveal the intense psychological drama operating just under the surface.
So, how much psychological drama can actually be hidden in just one sentence? Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that, on the surface, what we're looking at reads like a totally basic, straightforward military report. I mean, a king looks at an army and then goes to talk to his commander. Pretty standard, right? But when we actually break it down, it transforms into a dense psychological thriller. We're talking anxiety, heavy political posturing, the looming weight of impending doom. It's absolutely wild how much raw human nature gets captured in just a few short words.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's the original Sanskrit for the opening of the verse. Sanjaya uvacha, drishtva tu pandavanikam. I always love starting with the source language because it really grounds us in the ancient authenticity of the material. Sanjaya uvacha just translates to Sanjaya said. He's our narrator, speaking directly to the blind king Dhritarashtra, and setting the scene on the massive, holy battlefield of Kurukshetra. Just by understanding the weight these ancient syllables carry, you can almost feel the tension building right before the clash.
The direct English translation sets a really vivid stage. It goes, Sanjaya said, O king, after looking over the army arranged in military formation by the sons of Pandu, King Duryodhana went to his teacher and spoke the following words. Picture this classic standoff in your mind. You've got King Duryodhana standing right on the edge of the battlefield. He's looking out, scanning the horizon, and he sees the enemy, the Pandavas, arranged in this massive, highly organized military phalanx. The original Sanskrit uses the word vyudam, which denotes a deeply complex, intimidating military arrangement. So seeing this formidable sight, Duryodhana immediately goes over to his teacher, who also happens to be his military commander. That's the surface-level action.
And this brilliantly illustrates the deep ideological chasm between the two sides facing off. Take King Dhritarashtra and his sons, which obviously includes Duryodhana. The source points out this crucial multi-layered metaphor. The king wasn't just physically blind. He and his sons were completely bereft of spiritual vision, literally blind in matters of religion. Contrast that with the Pandavas, who the text explicitly states were pious since birth. So we're not just looking at a clash of armies fighting over land here, it's a profound moral divide. The blind king knows deep down in his bones that there can never be an understanding or a compromise between his ambitious, spiritually blind sons and the pious Pandavas.
Let's move to and see how this builds into an incredible moment of mind reading between the characters. The king is sitting far away from the battlefield, right? He's doubtful, despondent, and secretly terrified that the holy atmosphere of the pilgrimage site might actually inspire his sons to unexpectedly compromise and make peace. But Sanjaya, who's narrating the scene from afar, is an incredibly astute observer. He catches on to the king's hidden anxiety immediately. To manage his sovereign's fears, Sanjaya deliberately frames his narration to reassure him. He's essentially saying, "Don't worry, my king, your son Duryodhana isn't going to make any sort of compromise." It is just a fascinating psychological dance between the narrator and the anxious listener.
Which brings us to a major turning point in the physical action on the battlefield itself. Think about this for a second. Why did King Duryodhana approach the commander? Seriously, think about the protocol here. Duryodhana is the king. He is the ultimate authority on that side of the field. Usually a king summons people to him, right? But instead, after seeing the enemy, this incredibly powerful king suddenly leaves his position and rushes over to his commander-in-chief, Dronacharya. What on earth would compel a king to completely break royal protocol in the middle of a battlefield? It instantly cranks up the tension of the scene. Something has severely rattled him.
Well, Duryodhana didn't just move randomly. He was reacting to a severe reality check. Seeing that highly strategic phalanx of the Pandavas clearly struck a nerve. This wasn't just some disorganized mob. It was a seriously formidable force. He realized the threat was far graver than he'd originally anticipated, and he knew he had to inform his commander of the true situation, immediately. He couldn't just sit back on his royal chariot and wait for reports to come in. He had to take charge of the optics and the strategy. As the text notes, this swift, calculated reaction proves he was quite fit to be a politician, actively managing a desperate crisis in real time.
Actually, I want to pause here and unpack a really brilliant phrase used in the commentary text, diplomatic veneer. What exactly does that mean in this specific context? Well, a diplomatic veneer is the act of using political etiquette, official protocols, and a mask of outward composure to completely hide your true state of mind. Duryodhana goes to his commander ostensibly to discuss tactics, right? That's the diplomatic, kingly thing to do. It looks like leadership, it looks like control. He is using his status and this highly political behavior to maintain an illusion. He's desperately trying to project strength and unshakable confidence to his troops and his general, when internally, things are completely falling apart. So, the crucial point is that the mask was slipping. The final sentence of our source text rips off that diplomatic veneer to reveal the climax of this verse. But Duryodhana's diplomatic veneer could not disguise the fear he felt when he saw the military arrangement of the Pandavas. That right there is the psychological core of the entire verse. All of that political maneuvering, all of that rushing over to the commander, all of that outward display of taking charge, it was driven entirely by raw, visceral fear. He looked across the battlefield, saw the pious and expertly organized Pandavas, and he was absolutely terrified. And that brings us to the main takeaway about human nature from our explainer today. Political diplomacy and outward confidence are often just a veneer for deep-seated fear. What we're seeing in a text from thousands of years ago perfectly maps out the timeless reality of political anxiety. Because honestly, human nature just hasn't changed. When people are deeply afraid, especially those in positions of extreme power, they don't exactly broadcast it. Instead, they overcompensate. They lean heavily into protocol, they make grand gestures, and they act overly confident to convince themselves and everyone around them that they've got everything under control. The Bhagavad Gita is calling out this psychological defense mechanism with devastating accuracy. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Think about the world today. The next time you see a leader project absolute confidence in a crisis, or meticulously follow political protocol when things are clearly chaotic, ask yourself, what hidden fears might their diplomatic veneer be covering up? Are they genuinely in control, or are they just having a Duryodhana moment? This ancient text invites us to look way past the surface of leadership and examine the intense psychological realities operating underneath. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep looking past the surface, keep analyzing, and we'll see you in the next explainer.